What is going on, world? What's up, YouTube? It's Zero here. Today I'm bringing you guys a brand new episode of the 8 Below Show. Welcome everyone to 8 Below. Thanks for being here, guys, to the best gaming related show here on YouTube. And I'm super excited about our episode here today. We have a lot of stuff to talk about, so let's get into it. So Dead Rising was this franchise, guys, that spanned over 4 titles, and I want to talk about this franchise just, obviously the past, present, and where we could see this franchise go in the future. And I want to talk specifically about Dead Rising 5. Is this a title, guys, that we could see an announcement in 2022? Let's talk about it. So, guys, in an article coming to us from Callum Williams of Game Rant, a new video report on YouTube documents the fall of Capcom Vancouver and the development troubles behind the canceled Dead Rising 5. While the likes of Resident Evil, Devil May Cry, and Street Fighter may be better known, Capcom's work on Dead Rising has grown a fairly substantial cult fanbase over the years, allowing players to navigate through a series of fun settings while slaying zombies, saving survivors, fighting deadly bosses, and uncovering wonderfully over-the-top conspiracies. The series really found its feet as a tongue-in-cheek take on the zombie genre. And I agree, guys. I really enjoyed the first title. I thought it was, something pretty special, or really something different. And I thought that was really cool, just like, mowing over, zombies with a lawnmower and things of that nature. I thought it was like just a really cool, interesting concept, and was just like a fun one to kind of see that kill count go up over time. It was something, very different and very niche in this genre. Discussing the development issues plaguing the potential sequel in his How Capcom's Dead Rising studio fell apart Game History Secrets YouTube video, Robertson describes exactly what Dead Rising 5 was and why it eventually came apart at the seams. According to the journalist, the game started production only a few months after development on Dead Rising 4 began, with a new team of completely fresh talent behind the game. The title originally was meant to star Chuck Green, the protagonist of Dead Rising 2, with the narrative taking place in the gap between the second and third game stories. Allegedly, it would have also seen players able to play Chuck's daughter Katie as a co-op partner, with the two having their own set of distinctive abilities and movesets. Sounds pretty interesting to me. Alongside this, the game would be set in the fictional town of Santa Catarina, Mexico, with Chuck and Katie working with the local cartel to secure Zombrex, the series' fictional zombie cure drug. It was meant to be far more colorful than the last 2 games in the series, running on a new engine and with vastly different combat. According to Robertson, issues came when the project changed focus several times, with the game originally aiming to resemble a Ubisoft title before making a large U-turn and looking more towards the likes of Dark Souls for inspiration. And they should not have gone to the likes of Dark Souls for inspiration, in my personal opinion, guys. I'm not sure why they decided to do that, but they did. It seemed Capcom wasn't a fan of the major change in direction, closing the studio down and killing the project for good. With previous Dead Rising games leaning heavily towards more challenging encounters, it would have made sense for the franchise to look towards releases like Dark Souls for inspiration, an effort to find what made its early iterations tick. Sadly, it seems that fans will never get to see what the project could have been. So, let's just talk about this, guys. I disagree that, leaning towards a game like Dark Souls for inspiration. Do I think that Dead Rising needed to evolve? Yes, I do. Absolutely. I think it needed to evolve and continue to grow with time, without question. But I just feel that it was kind of like almost like that perfect storm of problems that happened that really led to Dead Rising's cancellation. I felt that, guys, at the end of the day, they were trying to bang out too many Dead Rising titles too quickly. Instead of focusing on a really good game, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Rage, guys, and what's going on with Rage currently. So, obviously, we had the first Rage game, then the second one comes out, and they were already, while they were marketing Rage 2. They were already talking about Rage 3. And that's just not how you do it, guys. You've got to, be really promoting your current title. And if it does well, then you move on to the next one if it gets greenlit. When you're already looking to the future, that can be a serious problem. The only games that can probably really even do that, and even games like this are having issues, is like games like Call of Duty that have a new game every year. They can be looking forward because they have a few studios that are working on these titles. But even at that, it's still suffering as we go here with a game as big as Call of Duty. Dead Rising, I feel like they were focused on Dead Rising 4, but they still had some of the team working on 5 at the same exact time and weren't really there for supporting Dead Rising 4 when it released. And so there were all these different issues and things of that nature when the game comes out, and they're already looking to the future, and Capcom's thinking, well, this game is almost like incomplete, so why are we going to greenlight another one? And so I just think that there were just a number of issues between Capcom and obviously the studio, and whether we're talking creative differences or obviously it just wasn't lining up that Dead Rising was really going anywhere. That being said, though, could we see an announcement in 2022? Yes, it looks bleak, guys, that we're probably not going to get an announcement in 2022 for Dead Rising 5. However, do I think we could get a Dead Rising reboot of some sorts? I do think it's very possible. We look at titles, guys, that Capcom, uses, and some of their biggest titles, that being like Resident Evil, Devil May Cry, and things of that nature. But I still think that they're always going to be continuing to look at like increasing their library of games for their, for the player base. And I think Dead Rising definitely should play a part in the ecosystem of gaming in one way, shape, or form. It was very different. It was very unique. We really haven't seen anything like it at this point. Dead Island had certain things that were similar, but we haven't seen a continuation there for quite some time. Dead Rising 5, I think, is something that should happen, or a Dead Rising reboot should happen of some sorts to get us to that next generation of gaming, guys. Updated graphics and kind of just, hitting the reset button on Dead Rising, I think could be something pretty special. But what do you guys think? Do you think we'll get an announcement here in 2022 for Dead Rising 5? Or do you think this game is going to stay in a limbo state or a state of no return? Let me know in the comment section down below. And for more Dead Rising 5 content and videos, stay here with ZeroTB. A title I really enjoyed, guys, when I had the Xbox 360, it was a title that I just was so intriguing, had so many interesting concepts, was Time Shift. This was a title, guys, that was developed by Saber Interactive and was published by Vivendi Games. And that being said, this title was special in many ways. Number one, guys, I loved how it had like being able to reverse time and, freeze time and all these different, elements to your character in Time Shift. And I thought it was a game that was really beyond its time. We haven't really seen anything like it since it came out, and I thought that it's something that definitely needs to be done again at some point. So I want to talk about Time Shift 2. Could Time Shift 2 be a title that we see at some point or another in the future? And Time Shift 2, guys, what are the things that we know about this so far, if anything? So let's get into it. So as I said, Time Shift released back in 2007 on the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360. And with that being said, guys, there's a couple of things that we have to note here when we talk about the possibility of a Time Shift 2 is, number one, how was the reception of this title? Well, first of all, guys, the reception was mixed to positive reviews. I would say more positive than negative without question, or mixed. It had a 6.5 out of 10 on GameSpot. It had an 8.2 out of 10 on Game Trailers. IGN gave it a 7.6 out of 10. Team Xbox gave it a 7.9 out of 10. So those are pretty good overall when we talk about from a reception perspective and review scores. That's pretty good overall. Now, the big thing here is that if Time Shift 2 were to ever come out, most likely Saber Interactive would have some form or would be a part of this in some way in the future. Well, Saber Interactive, guys, their very first game they ever developed was Will Rock back in 2003. Time Shift was the next one after that, and since then, guys, they have developed a lot of different games, from Quake Champions to NBA 2K Playgrounds 2. to World War Z, to Halo 3, Halo 3 ODST, to Halo 4, Halo Combat Evolved, all the way now, guys, to Crysis Remastered, Crysis 2, Crysis 3, and Evil Dead the game, and leading us all the way to what we're getting very soon in the form of Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2. So let's talk about Saber Interactive. This is a company, guys, that has done some very prestigious titles over time. And I've got to tell you that I feel that there's a real possibility here that they could, being like right there as part of like the development team is concerned, they have a great opportunity with these titles. So what does that lead me to here with Time Shift 2? Well, Time Shift obviously coming out, 2007, guys. Would they ever go back to that? The answer, in my opinion, is no. And the reason being, guys, because they've been working on so many incredible titles. I mean, you talk about the Crysis Remastered series. I mean, you're talking The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt Complete Edition. They worked with CD Projekt Red on that. World War Z and the DLCs that came out with that. Obviously, Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2 looks incredible, guys. You guys can check out all of my Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2 content here on the YouTube channel, but looks incredible. World War Z was awesome, guys. I mean, they've worked on some really great games and been a part of some really great games. And so to me, I really can't see them going back to Time Shift. The one thing that I could see, and I feel that this needs to happen more in the gaming industry, is different development teams buying IPs from other companies. And I mean, we see it, but we see it more on a bigger scale, like Microsoft buying out Bethesda and buying all the properties that come with Bethesda. But individual properties, we don't see it quite as much. And I think that's something that I would love to see more in the future. Like, I would love to see Saber Interactive maybe be a part of, putting up the rights to Time Shift and selling the rights to someone else, because I feel like it's just a title that could be really special, having a sequel or having a new IP created kind of as a spiritual successor to Time Shift. I think that could be really special as well. But with that being said, guys, at this point in time, are we going to get an announcement in 2022? I have a feeling that we're not going to get an announcement, guys, in 2022 because Saber Interactive is working on so many other titles. I mean, they're currently working on 3 different games at this point that have, that'll be coming out at some point or another in the future. But let me know, guys, what do you think? I mean, look, I love Time Shift. I would love to see this continue in some way, shape, or form, but it's hard to say or really think that it's going to come out or be announced here in 2022. Let me know, though, in the comment section down below. And for more Time Shift 2 content and videos, stay here with Zero TV. Another title I would love to see a continuation of in some way, shape, or form is Lost Planet, guys. This was a title that was absolutely awesome, and I felt for a long time that it should be something that continues in some way, shape, or form. But with that being said, I want to talk about, could we see an announcement in 2022 for Lost Planet 4, guys? And I want to break it down, and I would love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comment section down below. So let's get into it. So guys, in an article coming to us from Ash Bates of Cultured Ventures, if the planet's lost, maybe check the back of the couch. During the early stages of the Xbox 360's life cycle, it really felt like Capcom threw their full weight behind Microsoft's new console, launching 2 original IPs on the Western console as opposite to the PS3. We've already spoken about everyone's favorite zombie survival genre, Dead Rising, which went on to achieve moderate success over the next decade, but the other series, Lost Planet, seemed to fizzle out before too long. So the history here of Lost Planet. The Lost Planet series made its first appearance at an invite-only press conference as Lost Planet Extreme Conditions, where Capcom detailed the game while announcing Jun Takuchi as producer and executive producer Kenji Oguro as the game's designer and Shin Kurosawa as the original story writer. Between the 3 of them, there was plenty of experience across Capcom's back catalog, with credits on the likes of Onimusha, Mega Man, Resident Evil, and more. Interestingly, Capcom made the decision to tie Lost Planet to the Xbox 360, with the initial reveal event is scheduled to coincide with the launch of the console in Japan. However, the Xbox 360 notoriously flopped in Japan, while the console taking 5.5 years to sell just 1.5 million units, which is staggeringly low amount. Compare that to the PS3, which by 2011 had managed to sell 7.4 million units, which blows the Xbox 360 out of the water. Heck, the 3DS only launched in 2011, but still managed to ship 4.1 million units by the end of the year. So, first of all, guys, I love the Xbox 360. I love PlayStation as well. I feel like Xbox had a much better, online experience, and I still think it does to this day. PlayStation has things that they've done really, really well. I think, obviously, Xbox never really seemed to be on quite the same echelon as far as from a user base as PlayStation did. It feels like Xbox is gaining traction with the Xbox Series X and with all the console exclusives that are coming out. But back then, definitely, guys, with Lost Planet coming out on the 360 and obviously the amount of units that were sold for the Xbox compared to PlayStation, it wasn't even close. So, after making various appearances at the other big name conferences throughout the year, Lost Planet would launch in December 2006 in Japan before launching worldwide a month later. The game earned a respectable 79 on Metacritic, with reviewers commending the visuals and scope of the game, while lamenting some of the controls and general issues with the bland story. The Xbox 360 version done alone went on to sell 1.37 million copies by the end of March 2007, before the game was inevitably ported to both PC as well as PS3 by 2008. So, look, I think that we can really say that, there's a long-standing history here of Lost Planet, from the first Lost Planet to the second, and then, of course, to the third. Once we got to Lost Planet 3, that's where it started to seem like there was becoming some real issues, or maybe there was really always a thought that they were just going to make a trilogy. But that being said, what happened, guys? So the last game in the series, Lost Planet 3, saw development duties move from Capcom's internal studios to a Western studio in the form of Spark Unlimited. Historically, this move hasn't exactly gone well most of the time for Capcom, with the likes of Grin developing Bionic Commando or Slant 6 developing the accursed Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City. At least Blue Castle's work on Dead Rising was commendable up until it wasn't, thanks Dead Rising 4. So a prequel to the other games in the series, Lost Planet 3 saw players take on the role of Jim Payton, one of the first people to land on the snow cover planet of EDN-3. Trying to survive, gather precious thermal energy, and ultimately colonize the planet, the gameplay pivoted away from the massive scale that the previous games championed, instead confining gameplay to smaller corridors and interior environments. So, let's put it this way. Truth be told, Lost Planet 3 earned a lot of comparisons to Dead Space due to the camera moving closer behind the protagonist's shoulder, the claustrophobic environments, just an overall move towards scares and horror. These comparisons weren't helped by the fact that Dead Space 3 launched before Lost Planet 3, with Dead Space 3 focusing on a snow-covered planet, much like the Lost Planet series. And Dead Space 3 really didn't do well, guys, either. We're lucky that we got a continuation of Dead Space, which really, what we're getting at here is that the entire community really rallied around Dead Space, and over the years we have voiced our opinion saying we want this game made, and so a Dead Space reboot is finally coming out. Could something similar happen here with Lost Planet? I definitely think it's possible, guys. Despite the Lost Planet series playing around in the snow and aliens space before Dead Space, it didn't stop critics from harshly reviewing LP3, earning the lowest scores in the entire series on Metacritic. Reviewers had kind words to say about the game's voice work, but lambasted LP3 for some weak gameplay design and an over-insistence on backtracking. Perhaps the most damning review came from Eurogamer, who proclaimed that LP3 manages to make third-person shooting feel like work. If nothing else, Spark Unlimited went on to greater success with Yaba Ninja Gaiden Z. So what's the future here, guys, of Lost Planet? Because I will tell you this. Lost Planet at this point is in a limbo state, or a state of potential no return. But that doesn't mean that we as the community can't voice our opinion to the developers. It's telling Capcom that we want this to come back, guys. There's plenty of games out there that we want to see continue in some way, shape, or form? Could we see a Lost Planet reboot or a remake similar to like what we're getting with Dead Space? I absolutely think so. I think there's something to be said for Lost Planet. There was some really special elements to this title, and I would love to see that continue in some way, shape, or form. So is there even a future for a game like Lost Planet? I hope so, if only because its bombastic spectacle, particularly with regards to the second game, made it one of the most enjoyable Xbox 360 games on offer. Finding a team of players to work together and man a massive railway cannon, which requires other players to help defend the gunner or reload the weapon, made for an inventive and thrilling co-op experience that other games weren't really experimenting with back in 2010. Okay, so at one point, an idea for a new Lost Planet game was formulated. We mentioned Blue Castle before, who developed Dead Rising 2 and would ultimately go on to be branded as Capcom Vancouver. Journalist Liam Robertson did a deep dive in 2020 into how the Dead Rising series fell apart at Capcom Vancouver and revealed that the studio pitched to revive other classic Capcom franchises, including Onimusha, Dino Crisis, and most importantly, Lost Planet. So the team's pitch for Lost Planet, subtitled Broken Horizon, would have been somewhat similar to Lost Planet 2 in terms of its gameplay. The game would feature 4-player co-op, along with huge mech suits that allow you to fight giant aliens and protect a base from bandits. Vancouver pitched this game at the end of 2016, but Capcom Japan rejected it as, according to them, it would require too much budget to reboot this relatively niche franchise. So, one of those things, guys, immediately it's wishful thinking considering that Capcom seemed to have a lot on their plate with their supposedly leaked line of games, as well as titles like Pragmata on the horizon. Finding room for Lost Planet in that tight schedule might be tough, but I'll be keeping my fingers crossed. Nonetheless, I don't have a choice. My last trip to EDN3 left them frozen together. So with that being said, guys, look, at the end of the day, do I think that we could very well get a continuation of Lost Planet in some form or another? I absolutely do, guys. It really comes down to us as a community. And what do I mean by that? Well, it comes down to people creating content around Lost Planet. It comes down to people banding together and creating groups on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, reaching out to the developers, tagging them in posts and things of that nature, telling obviously these developers that we want this game made, creating petitions and all of that stuff really helps, guys. I mean, creating content about Dead Space for a long time, guys, and I felt like there was always a possibility that it could come back. In the back of my mind, I was thinking, man, maybe it won't ever come back. And all of a sudden it came, and everybody in the community is so excited for a Dead Space reboot. The same thing could very well happen to Lost Planet. So it comes down to us, guys, voicing our opinion and giving these games a voice so that, that they can come back at some point or another in the future. But the real question comes down to, guys, do you think we'll ever get another Lost Planet title? Could it be announced here in 2022? Or do you think that it's probably going to stay in a limbo state or a state of no return? Let me know in the comment section down below. And for more Lost Planet 4 content and videos, stay here with Zero TV. And with that being said, everyone, I hope you guys did enjoy this episode of the 8 Below Show. And if you guys did, leave a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, stay positive, and as always, I'll talk to you guys all in the next one. Peace.